Covering rogue regimes, including Syria and Iran, for decades now. She's a journalist in residence at the Foundation for Defense of Democracy. And Claudia, nice to have you. That was a good question that Leland just ended thereon about these weapons of mass destruction. If they are used, and we have proof of that, do you think it will change anything as far as our policy when it comes to Syria?
It would, proof of that, I think, would spark enormous international outrage. At the same time, there's already reason for enormous international outrage. And chemical weapons in the hands in Syria are a source of huge concern whether the Assad regime is using them or not.
What should we do about that?
Really good question, because there is at this point no risk-free answer, no risk-free solution. This is a reminder of why it's a very bad idea to let things develop to the point where you have a regime like Syria in bed with a regime like that of Iran, building up arsenals of weapons of mass destruction. We could start by ruling out two things that will not fix this. The first one is simply standing back and hoping it solves itself. It's very unlikely to. The second is going to the United Nations and thinking that relying on the UN will help. We've been doing that for 6 years with Iran. They're still making nuclear weapons. They're still pursuing nuclear weapons. We've been debating Syria at the UN, and you may recall there was supposed to be an investigation into Syria's assassination of the former Prime Minister of Lebanon 7 years ago. That's still wending its way through UN process.
So we could be waiting. So we could be waiting a while. You know, it's interesting. It ties into themes of an article that you wrote for the Wall Street Journal last week, where you were talking about Iran and how Iran's oil tankers are getting around the sanctions because they're disguising themselves and they're able to continue on their business. And it seems like one of the points you were making is that everyone's buying some time. Iran's buying more time each day as these negotiations are ongoing with the UN. The Syrians are buying time. No one has really stepped in here day after day. We have what seems like very similar reports, Claudia. So what stops the clock? If they keep buying the time, you know, what stops that?
What stops the clock is a real act of decisiveness and will, or several acts in the West, probably, almost certainly, necessarily led by the United States, which is still the world's superpower if we choose to wield that power. And buying time benefits the bad guys in this case. It's to the benefit of Iran. It's a chance for Assad to regroup in Syria. It sets the stage for much worse things ahead. North Korea is watching the precedents here. You know, this is all terribly important. I'll give you an example of a decisive act that has spared us great grief at the moment. In 2007, when Syria was collaborating with North Korea on building a secret nuclear reactor inside Syria, the Israeli Air Force went and acted. They took out that reactor, and which was ready to go live. Thanks to that, we are not now contending as well with a plutonium factory on the Euphrates River in Syria. But that was a risky thing to do, and it was something that was not going to get applause from the world community. The Israelis did it. We need to thank them for it. We now need to look to Washington and ask, what is the administration there prepared to do that will now choose best among the risky alternatives and actually do something to head off the real danger that Syrian chemical weapons, possibly even biological weapons, will end up in hands where they could be used to strike not only Israel but the United States.
Gives us something to think about as we end here, Claudia, how different as well the situation would have been if the Israelis, and again they don't confirm that, didn't take that action in Syria. Claudia, we look forward to having you back. Thank you so much for the time.